One vocal critic in the Senate, who the president has even threatened with jail time, says he has an obligation to be in that room tonight, and that's Democratic Senator from Arizona, Mark Kelly. Senator Kelly, we thank you for joining Top Story tonight. Talk to us about your decision to attend tonight's State of the Union, and do you think your Democratic colleagues have a responsibility to attend as well?
Tom, I think everybody has to make their own choice, and I understand my colleagues who made the choice not to be there. This president is violating people's constitutional rights. Especially folks in Minnesota, Los Angeles. We have 2 dead Americans. Other people have been beaten up. Their homes have been entered without warrants. And, in my case, I made the decision to be in that room tonight for a very specific reason. 3 weeks ago, this president, tried to indict me and send me to jail. He was, if things worked out well for him, I might be sitting in a jail cell right now. So I want to show him and others in his administration that he failed. And I'm there doing my job, representing the people of Arizona, and I'm going to listen to every word he says.
Yeah. Senator, the Pentagon has investigated you since you brought this up. They even tried to prosecute you over that video where you told troops they didn't have to follow military orders if they were illegal. How concerned are you about possible future legal action?
Well, I learned today that the Department of Defense, despite the judge in my lawsuit, me suing Pete Hegseth to stop the process where they're trying to demote me and take away some of my retirement pay. So I sued Pete Hegseth. We had a court hearing. The judge said they were in violation of my First Amendment rights, not only me, but millions of retired service members and other service members. But despite that, Pete Hegseth and the Department of Defense is appealing that ruling to the U.S. Court of Appeals, the D.C. Circuit. So they're not going away. They're not backing down. They don't seem to care about the Constitution, care about the rights of retired service members like myself. I spent 25 years in the Navy. I flew combat missions, flew on the space shuttle 4 times. I've served this country in a lot of different ways. But this administration doesn't care about that. They just want to silence people that don't agree with them. And a unique feature about our democracy is that people have a right to speak their mind, even when they're speaking out against the government. This president doesn't like that. Because of that, he said he wanted to hang me, then execute me, then prosecute me. So I don't expect him to go away, but I'm still going to be doing my job, and I'm not going to shut up.
Well, Senator, I do want to ask you, I'm sure this is costing you money. I'm not sure exactly how you have to cover all these legal bills, but do you regret making that video? Would you make it again?
I 100% do not regret it. I absolutely would make it again. It was an important message. Hey, I served in the military. I remember getting, talked to about this early in my career. People don't get reminded of this often. And we said something that was lawful. We repeated what is in the Uniform Code of Military Justice. And because of that, they tried to indict me, send me to jail, and now under the Department of Defense, they're trying to demote me. But of course, I'm always going to do the right thing. That was the right thing to do. But unfortunately, this president doesn't like people who have a different opinion from him. And he wants to shut people up. Well, he's not going to shut me up.
You've been, of course, as we know, you've done it right here. You've been a vocal critic of the president. But when you look back at the first year of the president's second term, are there any areas where you've seen genuine progress?
God, I've thought about this, and one of the problems, and I think it's a feature of his administration, is he does so many things that are so egregious, violating people's constitutional rights in Minnesota and L.A., tariffs, which is a tax on the American people, and then he lies about it and says foreign governments, foreign companies are paying, these tariffs, and the American people are hurting. I know, and there are some things that I've agreed with him, on, but the other stuff, which is, so over any norm and any line, just kind of drowns out anything else. I mean, just look at the Epstein files and what was reported just today, that possibly DOJ has removed information that had his name on it. That's not the way the system is supposed to work. We're supposed to have an independent Department of Justice, independent from the White House. but he's weaponized it and he uses it to protect himself.
You represent Arizona, which went to the president by about 5 percentage points. What are you hearing from your voters down there about the current state of the U.S. economy?
Well, I'm hearing people are poorer and they're less safe. People are broke. Young people can't afford places to live. And in my state, hundreds of thousands of people are going to lose their health care coverage. And they're not going to be able to afford to go to the doctor, and they're not going to be able to afford their medication. People are going to die because Donald Trump decided that he wanted to give this big tax cut to billionaires. So that's what I hear from the American people. The other thing I hear is they find it pretty objectionable that time and time again he is taking steps to make himself and his family and his friends richer. Unprecedented in American history.
Senator, tonight in this interview, you've taken the president head on. You've dedicated your life to this country. I just wonder, where do you go from here? Does your political career, does your public service career end in the Senate, or would you consider a run for presidency in 2028?
I haven't made a decision about 2028. We have this election here in 2026. I'm going to do everything I can to help us win back the House and the Senate. I think we have a real opportunity. We got to have some more levers of power here to keep this president who is out of control in check. If we can win back the House or the Senate, we can do that. We can restore some parts of our constitutional democracy that have been lost by this president. We can repair some of these relationships that have been so damaged with our allies. I was over in Munich just last week, and to hear from prime ministers and deputy prime ministers, foreign ministers, about the damage and the loss of trust, I got to say, is really heartbreaking. And if you're Greenland, the fact that this president was talking about attacking an ally to take their land is unconscionable. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us. The election in 2026 is so important. Then I'll think about 2028.
All right, I didn't hear a no there, but we heard everything else. Senator Mark Kelly, we appreciate your time tonight. We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.